I got a bone to pick with this one, and it's tough because it's not all black and white. Like, there is, of course, just like with all historical topics, there's a ton of gray. Like, I think that's the only problem when it comes down to just talking about history in general. Talking about things like they're black and white is probably the number one way you're going to find yourself looking kind of dumb in a lot of subjects. It's one thing to, be making like videos like I do. It's kind of hard because I've constantly struggled with this, to be able to kind of make whatever, some sort of funny joke, but know that it wasn't that black and white. I'm struggling with that more and more as I continue to learn more and more and continue my my journey throughout history and learning about different things here on YouTube. But regardless, this is it. I mean, and it comes up every single year. It's essentially the way the history community here online, it's mostly an online thing, deals with historical entertainment. I'm mostly talking about movies, but also TV shows, also video games. I gotta say, like I said, it's a tough subject, but there needs to be, we need to have a talk, bro. We gotta have a talk. Like, I'm sorry, it's never going to be 100% historically accurate. People gotta let that go. I'm really, like, that is like the number one thing that makes me not a fan to be a part of the history community, because there's always going to be that subset of people that are complaining. And again, it's gray, it's black and white, because I think some things do need to be complained about. I think when certain entertainment historical movies change certain aspects of what actually happened in real life, you do kind of need to flip out a little bit, depending on how egregious the change is. And, nowadays, they can get pretty egregious. Some of them are pretty bad, but at the same time, it's like none of us can agree on, of course, like, where's the line? What can you change? Like, for instance, dang, I'm thinking of this. I wasn't even trying to talk about this, but the most recent example I can think of is in the Odyssey. There's like some behind the scenes footage that was published of, I think it was Matt Damon, that's like in the wrong clothing for the time period for that time in Greece. And it's just like, and people are just like flipping out. Now, I don't know, I haven't looked enough into that, but I do gotta say, when it comes to other forms of media, most of the time when the clothing is not perfect, I don't really care. Also, when it comes to history, a lot of this stuff is like somewhat up for debate. We don't even really know. There isn't like a straight up answer. I don't know. When it comes to clothes, for me personally, it depends on how egregious it is. Like, if you're going to take the helmet of a different nation, that could be pretty bad. Different city-state helmet. Like, especially an iconic one. You know what I mean? If you mess that up, that could be pretty bad. But if you're talking about the type of material used in at the 1800s Victorian era England, and this design, like, okay, come on, go fuck yourself. Like, just stop. I have a big pet peeve with that one. I'm like, dude, let that go. I think for the most part, a lot of people do let that go, but bro, I'm not gonna really care. Again, it depends on how iconic it is. Of course, I don't want to see, for instance, the someone depicting the American Revolution, and for whatever reason, if they changed their red coats to blue or something. I don't know, or I don't know, something more crazy, green. It's tough. It's tough to talk about this because it's so gray, and but I just have to say, there's lots of times where I'm just like, guys, calm down. But we're never going to be able to agree on the subject, and I think overall, I wanted to talk about this because it's like, I think overall, as long as, and I hate to say this because I'm kind of gritting through my teeth saying this, I want to say, as long as it's pulling kids and normie type people into the historical genre, into wanting to learn more about history, then it's doing their job. Remember that overall, a movie, a TV show, a video game, all their job is to do is to entertain you. That's it. They're here to make money and entertain you. If you're entertained, that's all that really matters. And I think, and it bothers me. I'm having to pause myself because I'm like, there are some historical changes where I'm just like, bro, like, you guys suck. Like, there's so many studios, so many Netflix adaptations. It's just like, bro, why are you changing this? You know what I mean? But Yeah, I think ultimately, though, the number one goal should just be to try to pull people into the time period, to wanting to learn more. Even if they're making changes that I would severely disagree with, and even though I get very annoyed at the history community that I'm a part of online, and I'm like, bro, just calm down. You know what I mean? There's plenty of things. The problem is also that, like, for some things, it's more triggering to certain subsets. So there's always complaining. Like, think about it like this big orb of the history community, and there's going to be different niches of that orb that are going to complain about little things. So whenever there's like a historical movie or TV show or video game that gets released, you'll always see complaining because there's always different subsets that will have something that maybe that TV show didn't get perfectly down. You know, whether the weapons are not perfect, or like I said, the costume design, or the architecture. That's a big one. So for me, like, I'm not going to care too much about the design, the costume design. The architecture, I would probably let that go. I just hope, here's the thing, you can acknowledge if it's wrong. That's totally fine. But also acknowledging that, like, hey, maybe this was not the exact doorknob they would have used in 1800s England or 1600s England, but I have to admit this did make the scene more powerful, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, seeing comments like that, which I do see, that's cool. I'm like, okay, I think that's fantastic. You did your job. You informed people like, hey, this is not correct, but you know what? I understand why they'd made the change, because ultimately it makes the scene better, you know, because X, Y, and Z. So I think that's fantastic. But yes, I also need to get over my own issues, and I need to ultimately, you know, like I said like 2 minutes ago, realize that media is just trying to entertain people. You know, like, I'm sorry, but a 9-year-old kid is not going to care about all of these topics, but it can still spike their interest, and you got to let them do their thing. And I'm saying this from experience. You know, a lot of people from my generation, we can all say, I mean, if you're older, I'm not sure, but a lot of people from my generation, we got pulled into history possibly because of Braveheart. And Braveheart was so egregiously bad. They made so many historical errors. But you know what? I'm here because of Braveheart, partly. I wouldn't say that's like the biggest movie for me, but how many times did like really big history creators get entertained and pulled into having an interest in history because of a very historically inaccurate film? I'm sure so many creators here on YouTube, that's literally what happened. For me, like The Last Samurai is all messed up. There's plenty of issues with The Last Samurai. That's a bad one. What's the other one that I was thinking of? Gladiator. I haven't heard too. I don't think Gladiator is like the most famous example. Apocalyptica. Like, some of these are not like the big egregious film mistakes, historically speaking. But yeah, I mean, that's why we're here. So ultimately, that should be the message that people should kind of keep in mind. I mean, I did just talk about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey that he's apparently going to release, and I guarantee you, I'm going to get a whole lot of content out of that when that movie comes out. I was going to call it a game. When that movie comes out in like a year, I'm going to be able to get a whole lot of, I want to milk that content out, baby, and because there's going to be so much talk, and I'm sure there's going to be so many people complaining online, but ultimately, it's a Christopher Nolan movie that is going to pull a lot of people in to that Greek epic, and I think ultimately that should be kept in mind if everything is not perfect and everything else. I mean, I gotta think that nowadays in 2025, there's some studios that are hesitant to cover historical things just because they know we're going to be annoying. And they might not have the resources to be able to. I mean, nowadays, like, the budgets are not as big as they used to be. You know, like, when you're adjusting for inflation, audiences are splintered. People do not have the money. They might not be able to hire the experts anymore. I'd rather them just cover historical topics in general, even if they cover it badly. And then again, you have creators online. You have plenty of forces and voices online that can, like, come and attack and be like, hey, you know, this movie is good or bad, and here's all the. But regardless, here are the historical inaccuracies. Yeah, so there's plenty of people. History Buffs is a good example of that. But there's people on Twitter and all sorts of other areas online that can cover that stuff if you want to get into the nitty gritty. But I think promote the promote history media content, promote Hollywood, support it for making that stuff, because I think they're doing it less and less likely, and because they're partly scared. A big one that I love, Robert Eggers. I loved Nosferatu. Now that's fantastic when you're not trying to be, when it's like a merging of historical fantasy. That's great. That's a great space to play in, because you're allowed so much more. But Robert Eggers made The Witch and The Lighthouse, and he made The Norseman, and then he just released Nosferatu. Nosferatu was like the most fun I had in a movie theater in a long time, because I'm extremely jaded when it comes to movies nowadays and just media in general. I don't really watch anything anymore. I'll talk about that eventually on this channel, but that was fun, and he's given a lot of liberty, because he kind of plays in this like this different genre, psychological horror kind of, but in a historical setting, and that's amazing, because he's given so much more leeway. That's nice, but you got to watch for. Yeah, but anyways, I'll wrap it up. But let's just cool it, I think, a little bit, and keep in mind, obviously there's going to be mistakes no matter what, but hopefully it's pulling in more normies into being more interested. That's ultimately what the media should be trying to do.